Hi there. Welcome to another episode and week of Focus, where we are focusing on very important issues that are happening in our community and things that you might not even realize are issues that are happening in your household. Are you catching yourself maybe not sure if you're able to go to the movies this weekend? Are you catching yourself not sure if you're able to buy that Starbucks coffee today? Well, as many Tennesseans and Middle Tennesseans continue to feel the impact of higher prices on everyday essentials, staying on top of personal finances can feel even more challenging than ever. Whether you're working to pay down debt, building your savings, or simply making your paycheck stretch a little bit further, it's never too late to make a positive financial change. And today we're joined by Eric Meriweather, Managing Director and Financial Advisor with Northwestern Mutual. We're going to talk all about his tips and tricks on ways that you can be a little bit more cognizant when it comes to your spending. And it's never a bad time to start that conversation. So, Eric, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today.
Of course. Well, first and foremost, the ripple effects of higher prices, it's affecting everybody. We actually here at Mix 92.9, we give away $1,000, or we give people the ability to win $1,000 every week on our show. And I always make the joke, what is that, like a couple pumps of the gas today? You know what I mean?
Right,
what is that,
right.
just like a couple drinks at Starbucks now?
Yeah.
Because it really does feel like that. So have you at Northwestern Mutual, as a financial planner, have been seeing an increase in people using your services because of that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You would think that people may shy away from it, but I have found that during times of uncertainty, times of turmoil, people are actually looking for more expert advice, and especially with, social media, you look at AI, there's a lot of information out there, but what I have found is there's not a ton of trusted expert experience where people know people that they can go to, that they know, like, and trust. And so we do see an influx during times like this of people looking for someone who has been, in the industry for a while, that knows their stuff, that they can go to and get some solid advice and context of how it applies to them in their specific situations.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. I think also the thing that I wanted to ask you as well, and you mentioned that just now, is being a trusted person in someone's life. Yeah. When it comes to finances, that is a very intimate type of conversation.
For sure.
Do you find that people get a little shy or nervous talking to you about their finances?
I would say 150%. I was sharing something with a client yesterday, and of course, with people that I meet with, I talk to, it's 100% confidential. And so you would think some days I'm actually a mental health counselor or a therapist, because money is one of those things where it's very private, and there aren't too many things or people, should I say too many people that individuals talk with about their specific finances. And so it's a very private thing. And so I once heard this analogy. It's almost like getting naked in front of someone, because if you think about your bank accounts, your finances, that's not something that many people see or know, right? People could assume one thing, and that's what we also see, no judgment, is that you could assume that a person is doing very well or not doing as well, but until you are able to look underneath the hood, you really don't know what a person's situation is. And so there's a lot of shame at times. There's a lot of embarrassment of where people are. And so you get people that are very nervous and anxious. And so it's part of our job, of course, as advisors, to be that safe space and let people know that it is confidential and we're not judging, and they can come to us and get advice, right, that's going to be, unbiased for them in their situation and truly help.
I'm going to ask you the $1 million question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Get comfortable.
Okay.
This was not even provided to me as a question, but this is something that I think about often. And I know that if I took this to my husband, he's going to say the same thing to me.
Okay. For sure.
Eric, I have problems with my finances. I can barely go and afford a cup of coffee right now, but yet I have to pay you money to help me with that. Can you help me make sense of how that cost makes sense for me?
Yeah. So this is one of the things that is very interesting, and there is a lack of clarity in the industry around it. So I was previously in banking, right? So I was in banking for a decade before I started my financial planning practice 12 years ago. And number one, you had to have a certain amount of money, first and foremost, to meet with an advisor. So I think sometimes people will say, I don't have enough money to even meet with an advisor. Some of that comes from the corporate banking sector, that in order to meet with an actual financial advisor or planner, you have to have a certain amount of assets under management with that bank that you are going to invest with them. Secondly, to get an actual financial plan with a lot of those institutions, you do have to pay money, a consultation fee, a planning fee, in order to sit with them for them to provide you feedback on your situation. One of the things that is very, very unique to Northwestern Mutual, not exclusive to Northwestern Mutual, but that's very unique in that you don't have to be wealthy. You don't have to have much money. And I always tell people that a conversation doesn't cost a thing. I won't say any names just due to confidentiality, but those that follow me on social media, I had a client that posted something just yesterday on media. And in the comment, this individual put below the post that I went to Eric before I had a lot of money and I got a plan. And so with firms such as Northwestern Mutual and advisors that operate in the capacity in which we are able to, people can come to us and have a consultation. A conversation doesn't cost a thing. And so I think part of it is having the awareness and knowing who and where you can go to for different things, because you can go and talk with an advisor and they're going to charge a fee, but you may get connected with someone else that's an advisor and they do not charge a fee based on, again, where you are, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I'm so happy that I asked you, because I think that that is what holds myself and other people just more of in a stronghold hesitancy to even approach a financial advisor, because you automatically have this feeling of like, are they going to just call this an investment? And then I'm just going to have to believe that. And then it's just, and even if you guys are actually providing wonderful services, which you guys are, someone that feels like they're drowning, that might just be to them more water, right? So I'm happy that we actually took the time to talk about that. I want to go into this as well, because I mentioned this earlier, gas and groceries, they are rising. Is it too late for anybody at a certain age to get the financial help that they need? When's that perfect time? Is there a sweet spot? Tell me like who this would be applicable for.
Multifaceted question, but there's a saying and a multifaceted answer. There is a saying that, our elders would say, every day above ground is a good day. Yeah. And so that same thing, rings true for many different things. As long as you have breath in your body, it's always a good time to make different decisions, because our life is essentially a culmination of the decisions that we make. And so it really goes back to mindset. And if you have the right mindset, no matter what your age is, I've heard stories of people in there. My mom went back and got her degree and then working on master's. I mean, I'm talking 60, 70 years old. And so you've heard these stories of people going back and getting degrees and getting into new careers and having second careers because they had the mindset and they believed that they could. Now, to the other part of that question, yes, the earlier you start, the sooner you start, the better. No matter what it is that you are talking about, the earlier that you begin, the more runway that you have, right? Whether it's investing. If you're investing, then we all know, was it Einstein called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world, right? Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, the greatest investor that we've known, has said that it wasn't that he was just this genius, which, that's you can argue that, but he started very young. And so time has been on his side as it relates to insurances, all types. The younger you are, the farther away you are from death, great mortality rates. So it's going to be a lower cost. So whatever it is that you are doing, it's always beneficial to start earlier because you just get a head start. Yeah. That makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. And I think that that's applicable with every single thing in life, of course.
For sure.
And let me ask you, because I think I really wanted to go into this conversation with you, kind of speaking from experience. My husband and I are definitely having some financial issues right now. Yeah. And so I would like to know when people sit down with you, whether they're an individual or they're a couple, where do you find that most of bad habits and finances are going? Are they going to more miscellaneous? I'm going to the movies, or are they going to like, I am driving a car that I really can't afford? What do you see most of out in the field?
So this may be surprising, but undoubtedly it's food. Undoubtedly. Literally me. Because you have this budget, right? And especially for couples, and then goodness, if couples don't have children and you get home from work, and sometimes even if you do, you get home from work and you don't feel like cooking, right? You don't feel like going to the grocery store, or you're at work and it's lunchtime and a coworker says, hey, you want to go, and grab rock and roll or whatever it may be, Don't
be fooling me with rock and roll sushi right now.
Yeah, that's one of our favorite
Don't
places.
be teasing me with rock and roll sushi like that.
And so you find these little purchases add up, and you'd be surprised that, how a $10 lunch here, a $75 dinner here adds up over the course of a month to $2,000 to $3,000 for those that have it. And I'll tell you something else that's interesting with that. And this is why it's not about how much money you are making. And people have heard this. It's not about how much money you make. It's about how much of the money you keep and what you do with that money that you keep. And so I've seen people making, no exaggeration, $50,000, $60,000 in better financial position than someone making $250,000, $300,000.
Wow.
And that's because it's a mindset. Mm-hmm. So if you have a discretionary after expenses or bills of $4,000 to $5,000, which there are a lot of people whose salary, right, is in that range. And so you have some individuals that blow and spend that, and it's like, how in the world can someone making this kind of money not have money, right? And it goes back to the mindset and what they learn and the habits going back to you. Because if you are spending an extra $500 to $1,000 and you simply get more money and you have no more education or accessibility to information and what you should do, and your habits don't change, it's just more zeros. I think Kevin Hart actually talked about when he got his first like 7-figure check. And to him, he said it was literally just more zeros, and it was gone within a matter of, if I'm not mistaken, like a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And so
Travis Kelce just said that recently when he got his first paycheck in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
It was gone. Yeah. It was gone within a couple of months. And that was very alarming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's real though, for sure.
And you know what? Do you feel that maybe there are not a lot of resources for people like Travis Kelce, who's new in the NFL, who was young at the time, to actually have a lot of education about personal finance?
So I think you'll find this to be interesting. And so this is what I've seen, like close up and personal. There are actually there are quite a bit of resources out there, right? So if you look at resources from the standpoint of information, and we talk about this like with our kids, like back in the day, we had encyclopedias and dictionaries. And so if you wanted to look up something, you had to go and find an encyclopedia or dictionary. With, Chat GPT, Google, we have everything in terms of information right at our fingertips. However, how do we know what information to trust, right? Because there's so much out there. But then also you have a lot of financial professionals that, they know their stuff. But then also there are a lot of people who have been taken advantage of. And so it comes back to who you trust. But in those situations with those individuals who are at the upper echelon of society, what I have seen is if they do not have a relationship with someone before they come into that wealth, the chances are very, very slim that they are going to trust anyone at that point, especially concerning their finances, because when they do get to that point, and I don't know for sure, but I would say probably somewhere between 80 to 90% of people that are around them for how they can actually benefit in gaining some monetary value. And so when you don't know who to trust, you just really lean into trusting yourself, right? If I'm going to mess up, if I'm going to be financially destroyed, quote unquote, then I won't have anyone to blame but me. But I'm not going to allow anyone else to come in and destroy my situation and take advantage of me, and steal. And so that's what I've seen.
It's honestly like a winning the lottery kind of conversation almost, when you actually hear that all the time about people that have won the lottery and it's gone within seconds, but because they just did not have any type of one singular person that they could trust. Or someone that could bestow really good information upon them. My husband's stepfather was always that person for him. He said, you gotta learn how to code. You'll make great money doing that. Learn how to code. And he's now a self-taught coder, my husband is. And so it's awesome. Really, he actually has that one person. And so because of that, he helps our household so much. That's awesome. So I think that just finding that one person or being that one person for somebody else is so important. And that's what you are for many people as well. I want to ask you as well about this. Many people are starting the year with good intentions about saving money. We've heard the New Year's resolutions. A lot of them deal with finances, but they fall off much like many resolutions do. Mine have, of course. What are some practical steps that people can take right now to get back on track?
All right. So I think, for one, this is a great time to reevaluate and reassess. I call this, you could say, financial halftime, right? We have these goals in the beginning of the year where it's our New Year's resolution, whether it's working out, it's finances, et cetera. And if the habits and behaviors and the systems that we put in place, don't change, then you get to the mid-year, you get to middle of the year, and you don't see a whole lot of progress. And so what I would say to people is that when you're looking to reset, reassess, don't put too much time, energy, and effort into the date, because with the date, you can really get off track. You can be discouraged, etc. It goes back to making a decision, right? And you can make a decision in February, March, April, whatever it is. I just think you have the beginning of the year like FOMO. Everybody's talking about their goals, objectives, what they specifically want to do. But I think if we focus on the decision that we want to make and making that decision. So I would say mid-year, what you want to do is look at where you currently are, right? Based on what your specific goals are. How much progress have you made? You want to look at your budget. You want to look at where your money is actually going, what's coming out, what's going in. You want to look at your credit card balances, seeing where they are in terms of progress that has been made, and really just, reassess where things are and how you need to move forward from this point.
And I imagine you as a financial advisor at Northwestern Mutual, that is your job to help do that for them.
Yeah, and I think, let me say this also, accountability. I think that's a big thing, and I'm glad you said that. I'm just thinking here, so if you're wanting to get in shape, you get a personal trainer. If it's outside of what you have the capacity, the discipline, and accountability to do yourself, even if it is not a financial advisor, of course, having an advisor and an expert is great, but someone that you trust, even if they're not financially savvy, if you know that you need to put $200 toward this credit card bill in addition to the minimum to have it paid off by the end of the year, simply have someone that can check in with you, right, to provide accountability so it's top of mind for you. And I think that's a really big part of it, because if you don't have anyone to hold you accountable on your decisions, then it's really hard to stick to that throughout the year.
I love that you use the personal trainer metaphor here. Yeah. That is really, really cool, because it goes back to my question of me being like, hey, I feel like I cannot even afford a pack of gum right now. And now I'm expected to go and see you, which is going to cost some money. And instead of giving that loop around answer that I hear all the time, you mentioned the accountability part, which is why a lot of people even back up their personal trainer, reasons and all those things. I love that you mentioned that. That is really, really exciting. Let's take it more specific, right? Okay. So Nashville has a large number of freelancers and entrepreneurs. And I want to know if you've actually worked with these kinds of people. People, musicians, gig workers, all those kinds, and their income fluctuates from month to month. So what does a successful financial reset look like for someone with unpredictable income? Yeah,
I love that question. And of course, this is like the music, the production, like capital, I feel like, of the nation it's become. And so, funny story, I actually sang, I danced. So I have this artsy side of me, but I chose business, right? I chose business, but when I got into the business, the majority of a lot of the people I was close to, they were actually, artists or background singers, musicians, etc. And so I love my people. And I found out what the term starving artist actually meant. And I have a lot of respect for, entrepreneurs, business owners in general, but especially artists, because they don't always earn, what you think that they would or what they would actually be worth for the gift that they give and bring to the world.
Yeah.
But so many, even those that may struggle, because a very small percentage actually hit it big, right? Or have a sustainable income to where they can do what they love full time. Many artists, entrepreneurs, musicians, they have part-time jobs and at times full-time. And so a lot of respect for those individuals. In terms of a reset and what that looks like for an entrepreneur, which, by the way, ironically, I work with, I'd say out of the people that we onboard as clients, probably about 60% of them are entrepreneurs or business owners. So the first thing that I would say is you have to identify what amount of money is needed on a monthly basis to meet your lifestyle. And I would say like the bare minimum, if these things aren't getting paid, something's getting taken from you, it's getting cut off. And this is something that we help with as well. So a spending plan or a budget, right? What is that minimum amount that's needed to be made? Because as an entrepreneur, income can be predictable. So I'll try to be brief with this, and this is what we help individuals with. So whatever product or service that you are selling, if you know you need X amount of dollars per month to meet that, then you need to look at the amount that you sell your product or service for. Again, if it's a product, if it's a certain number of clients, then you can calculate, if I sell or service X amount of products or this number of clients, that will equal to the $3,000. And that may be 6 clients a month, right? So I need to get 6 or sell 15, products that will equal the $4,000 a month that I need. I think that's where we actually have to start, and then crafting a specific strategy or go-to-market strategy, marketing, outreach of how you're going to make that a reality. And that is what really helps to provide more predictable income in what is typically an unpredictable field. All right, so I would say that's where we want to start. And then also taxes. Taxes. When you work a W-2, then you have your taxes taken out of your check before you even receive it. As an entrepreneur, business owner, you are responsible for your own taxes, and you typically want to pay those on a quarterly basis because you are penalized if you do not pay the taxes on a quarterly basis. And so I think the reset, if that's not done, that is really the foundation of where it's important for the entrepreneur, the business owner, to actually start. And then not being too prideful or ashamed, honestly, to pick up a part-time job or a full-time job if something is not working out, and just leveraging resources. You have money, but then you also have relational and people currency. And so I think one of the greatest things that an entrepreneur or business owner can do is be intentional about the relationship and about the asks that they have and what they need and the people that they are looking to connect with. Because I do believe most people do want to help if they see that you have the right heart and doing it for the right reasons. And I think that goes back also to business owners and entrepreneurs articulating their value proposition and why they are doing what they're doing, because if people can see the heart behind it and how it benefits others and not just looking for selfish gain and motivation, then they will be willing to help. But I think the reset really starts there for entrepreneurs, business owners, being able to calculate how many products or how many services you need to provide or clients you need to see that will equal the amount of income and revenue that you need to earn, and then making sure that you're setting aside the appropriate amount of taxes for that. And lastly, making sure that you are keeping business and personal separate So having two separate accounts, ideally a business account and a personal account, so that you can keep things separate, and that makes it a lot easier around tax time as well.
I mean, it's just thinking ahead, right? Mm-hmm. And putting yourself in that trend forecast of what that looks like. And I like that you said that, because what it sounds like to me is you're almost like a part of their business. You're like almost on their payroll, essentially, because you are like essentially in-house for them, helping them figure these things out if they don't have that person. We are almost out of time, but I want to ask you one last question, because something that you mentioned is this word that really stuck out to me: lifestyle. To what I think I need or what I want might not be what I should be having right now.
Yeah.
In a sentence or a couple, your best advice to give somebody if they need to reevaluate what their lifestyle should be, and to also keep them reminding them that this is just temporary. This isn't a permanent thing. So what would that be for you?
Two things. Number one, if your outgo or outflow exceeds your income, then your upkeep will be your downfall. I'll say that again. If your outgo or outflow exceeds your income, then your upkeep will be your downfall. And that's another way of saying, don't try to keep up with the Joneses, right? You have to look at where you are, what you have, and base your lifestyle on that. And so that may mean, sometimes it sounds cliche, but if the coworker asks you to go to lunch and it's outside of what you know that you need to be spending, it's not a need. It's more of a want, and you brought your lunch for the day. Go ahead and eat your lunch and catch up, with them later. It takes saying no to, I think, to a lot of things, and being confident in that, and knowing that no one else is going to help you to pay your bills. But they're going to ask you to do these things to spend the money that you don't have, right? So that would be one thing, right? Knowing how much you have, how much you need to earn, and staying within the bounds of your budget. The second thing is one of my favorite sayings: the tyranny of the or versus the genius of the and. So the tyranny of the or versus the genius of the and. We tend to think, I can either pay off this debt or I can invest my money. I can take a vacation or I can save for my kids' college, right? That's the way I think we're typically conditioned. And the last thing that you want to do, whatever amount of money that you're making, is make a certain amount of money and you're saving it all, or you're putting it all toward debt, etc. Or for that matter, you're spending it and living life like there's no tomorrow. I think it's okay to know that we can do both, and we should do both. And that's one of the things as a financial advisor, financial planner, that we help people to do. And I think some of the pause or the hesitation or the anxiety, even with talking with an advisor, is that they're going to tell you to do things totally counter and opposite of anything that you want to do. But where we usually start is we look at what you have, and this is just kind of a personal philosophy. We look at where you start, or what you have, and what's left over after expenses. And if it's $1,500, how much of that do you need to have essentially as leisure? Right. And that way you're able to have money to do things that you enjoy doing, but also able to put money toward a plan, whether it's paying off debt or saving or investing. And so I think that helps people to be able to spend a little bit more guilt-free, because they know that they're not neglecting their priorities by being frivolous and vice versa.
And you're not in the business to restrict somebody. You're not in the business to essentially strip them and make them. I think people have this misconception that they're walking into your door and they're going to leave feeling like they have just entered a situation they are not familiar with. And that's just not sustainable. Yeah. If we're talking about personal training, if you're restricting somebody, that's not sustainable. For so sure. I am happy that you mentioned that you're not in that business to, you want to bring them sense of normalcy no matter what you're doing. So
absolutely.
Eric,
absolutely.
Thank you so much. This honestly was so helpful, even just for me. I really enjoy speaking to you. I can see why people actually think that you're a mental health professional in addition to what you also do with Northwestern Mutual. We will have all this information and more on our Focus Facebook page and how you can get to know Eric one-on-one in person. He cannot wait to meet you. We'll see you next week on Focus.